In the distant past, a name echoed through the flames of war and legend. A leader whose impact shook the world, his story transcending the boundaries of time. He was the ruler of the Huns, known as the Scourge of God. His name was Attila. But what secrets lie behind this legend? Today, we unveil the true face of this enigmatic conqueror. Join us in our exploration as we traverse the mists of time to uncover the true face of the Scourge of God. From his appearance to his personality, from his complex relationship with Rome to his dual image in history and legend. This is not just a story about conquest. It is a legend about power, ambition, and the fusion of cultures. In a dark era dominated by power struggles and bloody wars shaping human fate, a boy named Attila was born on a stormy winter night in the year 406 AD. His childhood remained shrouded in a veil of mystery, filled with unknowns and speculations. Some say he displayed extraordinary combat skills and leadership talents from a young age, but these are merely rumors, with no one to confirm their truth. However, the real story begins when Attila turns 12, a pivotal moment of destiny. In a scheme of conspiracy and power trade, the young Attila was sent to the distant and mystical Roman court, becoming a hostage. It was a world filled with splendor and corruption, an empire built on bloodshed and betrayal. During his days in the Roman court, Attila received a refined education, learning about Roman traditions and customs, as well as their luxurious lifestyle. But beneath all this glittering facade hid a world even darker and more dangerous. When young Attila was sent to the Roman court as a hostage, the Romans' purpose was more than just a political formality. They hoped to mold Attila through education and cultural assimilation, shaping him into a Romanized leader, one who could understand and even appreciate Roman culture and values. Their aim was to use Attila as an internal agent, thereby extending Rome's influence within the Hunnic Empire, a covert and cunning form of cultural conquest. The Huns, on the other hand, had a more direct and brutal objective. In this game of power, they saw the young Attila as a valuable source of intelligence. The Huns hoped to gain crucial information about the Roman interior through Attila, including military deployments, political dynamics, and even Rome's vulnerabilities. For the Huns, Attila was not just a hostage, but a potential spy, a precious asset that could provide them with a strategic advantage. This two-way game of education and intelligence not only revealed the complexity of ancient power politics, but also foreshadowed Attila's future destiny. Under Roman influence, Attila not only mastered the Roman language and culture, but also learned how to use cunning and strategy. The intelligence obtained by the Huns from him also provided a key advantage for their future military operations. All of this was quietly shaping Attila's destiny to become one of the most famous conquerors in history. In this world full of conspiracies and strategies, Attila once tried to escape, but his plan was revealed, and he was forced to return to that magnificent yet dangerous court. This failed escape attempt made him more cautious and cunning. He began to secretly observe Roman domestic and foreign policies, even covertly participating in diplomats' secret meetings to deepen his understanding of Roman political dynamics. During the Roman era, hostage exchange was a common political and diplomatic practice. This practice was not only between hostile nations, but was also common among Roman noble families as a way to ensure loyalty and peace. Attila's experience was actually a vivid representation of the political atmosphere of that time. This is not just a story about how a boy grew into a powerful leader, but also a tale about power, betrayal, and survival. In this harsh world, Attila learned how to survive among wolves and ultimately became a ruler who was feared by many. In that distant era, The fate of the Huns was rewritten in 432 AD by a formidable leader named Rugila. He unified the scattered tribes and created a powerful empire. But the real story began 2 years after his death, when his two nephews, Attila and Bleda, inherited his throne, ushering in a new era. During those tumultuous times, Theodosius II, the emperor of the Eastern Roman Empire, faced an unprecedented threat. The two formidable leaders of the Huns, Attila and Bleda, were trampling across the European continent with their ruthless iron hooves. The reign of these brothers not only brought rapid expansion of power but also initiated a game of negotiations with the Eastern Roman Empire, a tumultuous struggle in the annals of history. In Margus, this negotiation reached its climax. The Romans felt unprecedented pressure under the iron hooves of the Huns. Attila and Bleda proposed a treaty that demanded not only the return of the apostate tribes by the Eastern Roman Empire, they also demanded the doubling of the annual tribute and a hefty ransom for each captured Roman. Such conditions were undoubtedly a heavy burden for Rome, even amounting to humiliating extortion. But why would Rome accept such an unequal treaty? Against the backdrop of a terrifying historical context, Rome's decision was underpinned by deep-seated fear and helplessness. Firstly, the military might of the Huns was daunting. Their warriors were merciless, brutal, and their tactics cunning, placing the Romans at a military disadvantage. Faced with such an enemy, the Romans realized that direct military confrontation would lead to disastrous consequences. Secondly, the Eastern Roman Empire was rife with turmoil and unrest during that period. Political instability, economic pressures, and other external threats rendered Theodosius II's throne increasingly precarious. In such circumstances, a full-scale war with the Huns would undoubtedly push the empire to the brink of collapse. Ultimately, this negotiation also reflected the complexity of international relations and power politics of that era. The Romans might have believed that by accepting these harsh terms, they could temporarily avert a greater disaster and look for more advantageous opportunities and strategies in the future. At this chilling historical juncture, the Romans' decision not only affected their own fate but also influenced the course of European history. This negotiation and the subsequent treaty became a symbol of the era's power struggles, a story about fear, strategy, and survival. During this time, Theodosius II constructed the walls of Constantinople and established strong defensive fortifications along the Danube River. However, when the Huns turned their attention to attack Erzurum, they faced a severe defeat in Armenia, forcing Attila and Bleda to abandon their conquest plans against Persia. In 440 AD, the Huns' attention once again shifted towards the Eastern Roman Empire. They repeatedly raided the merchant markets north of the Danube River and accused the Eastern Romans of failing to fulfill their treaty obligations. Attila and Bleda claimed that the Bishop of Margus had desecrated the royal tombs of the Huns and threatened to launch another attack on the Eastern Roman Empire. Leading their Hunnic armies across the Danube, they devastated the regions of Illyria and Thrace, even capturing the capital city of Philippopolis. In this war, the Huns used heavy siege equipment such as battering rams and siege towers for the first time, marking a significant turning point in the history of warfare. Their army advanced along the Nisava River, capturing several key cities and eventually even approaching Constantinople, the capital of the Eastern Roman Empire. Although the Hunnic army annihilated the Roman garrison outside the city, they were forced to lay siege due to a lack of sufficient siege weapons against the massive walls. After a prolonged siege, Theodosius II had no choice but to surrender and concluded an even harsher peace treaty with Attila. This treaty not only demanded the Eastern Romans pay a huge indemnity, but also significantly increased the annual tribute and adjusted the ransom for each captured Roman. A lesser-known fact is that in 445 AD, shortly after Bleda was killed by Attila, Attila became the sole ruler of the Huns. This event marked the absolute power of Attila and paved the way for his further conquest of the Eastern Roman Empire. Attila's rule represented not only the golden era of the Hunnic Empire, but also a nightmare for neighboring countries. His name became synonymous with fear, and his army was seen as an invincible force. Their warfare tactics, relentless assaults, and cruel treatment of enemies left an indelible mark on Attila's name in history. In that chaotic era, following the retreat of Attila and his Huns, a series of calamities befell Constantinople. It started with a massive riot in the arena, followed by a severe plague and famine between 445 and 447 AD, which nearly brought the great city to its knees. However, the most terrifying event was a massive earthquake that almost leveled the formidable walls of Constantinople. Against this backdrop of disasters, in 447 AD, Attila, having consolidated his position as the sole leader of the Huns, seized the opportunity to launch a new invasion from the province of Moesia. On the banks of the Veit River, a Gothic cavalry commander named Arnagisclus led the Roman troops in a valiant resistance but was ultimately defeated by Attila's forces. Although the Roman army's losses were not substantial, Attila decided to bypass some of the major military towns, crossing the Balkan Peninsula straight to the Thracian Chersonese, now in Greek territory. When the Hunnic army arrived at Constantinople again, they found themselves at a loss in front of the newly rebuilt walls. The situation at that time was described by Theodorus in Life of Saint Hypatius. The barbarian Huns from Thrace captured hundreds of towns, plunging Constantinople into a state of grave danger. People were panic-stricken and fled in all directions. The number of those killed was immeasurable. At the same time, they also captured a large number of monks and maidens. Attila subsequently proposed terms to restore peace, demanding the Eastern Romans to continue fulfilling their tribute obligations and to dismantle all defensive structures within a 5-day ride south of the Danube. This negotiation intermittently continued for about 3 years. During this period, the historian Priscus was sent to Attila's camp in 448 AD, and his work, Embassy to the Court of Attila the Hun, became the most accurate and detailed account of Attila. The book provides extensive information about Attila's marriages, character, appearance, and the circumstances within the Hunnic court. Particularly striking are the descriptions contrasting Attila's indifferent and simple character with the luxury of his subordinates and flatterers. He prepared a sumptuous feast for us, using very valuable silver dishes to serve food for us and their envoys. But in contrast to our luxurious dinnerware, Attila only used a wooden plate. Wherever he was, he always behaved very gently and simply. Even his wine cup was made of wood, whereas we used gold or silver cups suitable for each. His clothing was also very simple and neat, carrying a sword, a pair of Scythian-style boots, and a bridle without any gold or gem decoration, just like other Scythians. The wooden floor was simply covered with wool mats. During these years, an event occurred that profoundly influenced Attila's path of conquest, the legend of the Sword of Mars. Priscus recorded this story in his writings. When a herdsman found one of his heifers limping, he curiously followed the blood trail and eventually discovered that the calf had accidentally stepped on a sword while grazing. He quickly dug out the sword and presented it to Attila. Attila believed this to be the legendary Sword of Mars, seeing it as a sign from the heavens that he was destined to rule the world and that it would make him invincible in his future campaigns. This legend was later confirmed by scholars to originate from certain Central Asian tribes' reverence for swords. This historical account not only reveals Attila's image as a powerful leader, but also his cunning and ruthlessness in warfare and politics. In the year 450 AD, Europe was a landscape of shifting alliances and power struggles. Attila, the formidable leader of the Huns, began to shift his focus to Western Europe and extended an offer of alliance to the Western Roman Empire to jointly confront the powerful Visigothic kingdom in Aquitaine, Gaul. This move was not just a strategic adjustment, but also a bold attempt to shift the balance of power. Attila had maintained a good relationship with the Western Roman Empire, especially with Aetius, who had been sent as a hostage to the Hunnic Empire. Aetius, now a patrician, had spent his formative years in the Hunnic Empire. In the political system of ancient Rome, the position of Magister Militum, directly translated as Master of the Soldiers or Military Commander, was of great significance. This role was particularly crucial in the late Roman Empire, especially during the period when it was divided into the Eastern and Western empires. The Magister Militum was not only the empire's highest military commander, but also the primary military advisor and representative of the emperor. Upon his return to Rome, Aetius's Hunnic background and military prowess enabled him to rise rapidly within the military ranks. His astuteness and bravery made him stand out in numerous battles, ultimately leading to his promotion to the rank of Magister Militum. In this role, Aetius was responsible not only for commanding the army, but also for handling complex diplomatic relations with other tribes and nations, including his former family, the Huns. At that time, the Hunnic army was victorious in battles against the Basques and the Goths, earning Attila the title of Grand Marshal in Western Europe. Meanwhile, Gaiseric, the king of the Vandals under the shadow of the Visigothic kingdom, also aided in boosting Attila's influence in Western Europe through his diplomatic efforts with other European tribes. However, in Rome, Emperor Valentinian III and his sister Honoria held drastically different views regarding Attila's proposals. Honoria, in an attempt to escape a marriage arrangement with a court official, shockingly proposed marriage to Attila in the spring of that year. After careful consideration, Attila accepted her proposal but made a staggering demand: half of the empire's governance as a dowry. When Valentinian III learned of this, he vehemently rejected the proposal, replying to Attila on the grounds of illegitimate proposal, and exiled Honoria based on the advice of the regent mother Galla Placidia. However, Attila did not stop there. He sent envoys to Ravenna demanding further explanation and prepared to invade the Western Roman Empire if a satisfactory response was not received. That same year in the Eastern Roman Empire, Emperor Theodosius II, who had reigned for 42 years, died from a fall from his horse, and his successor Marcian halted the tribute payments to the Huns. The Balkan Peninsula, a crucial area for the empire's economic lifeline, had been ravaged over the years by the Huns and other barbarian tribes and was left with little remaining. Meanwhile, under Attila's rule, the Franks, following the death of their king, erupted into conflicts over the succession. The eldest and second sons each sought aid from Attila and Aetius, respectively. The renowned historian John Bagnall Barry theorized that Attila's ultimate goal in intervening was possibly to extend his empire to the Atlantic coast. When the envoys from Ravenna failed to provide a satisfactory response, coupled with the appeal for aid from the Franks, Attila decided to assemble a vast army to march towards Gaul. He drew troops from the Alans, Saxons, Ostrogoths, Burgundians, Heruls, and other tribes under Hunnic rule, combined with his own Hunnic cavalry, forming a formidable mixed army. In 451 AD, as Attila led his army into the Belgian province of the Western Roman Empire. Jordanes recorded that the army numbered 500,000. On April 7th, Attila captured Metz, while Roman general Aetius was mustering troops among the Celts, Franks, and Burgundians. As Attila advanced further westward, Senator Avitus was tasked with persuading Theodoric, the king of the Visigoths, to form an alliance with the Romans, resulting in a massive army being assembled to confront the Huns. This force reached the Orleans area ahead of Attila's army, blocking their further advancement. Eventually, at the Battle of Chalons, now in modern-day Champagne, France, Aetius caught up with Attila's forces, leading to the famous conflict. The battle concluded with a victory for the Roman and Visigothic coalition, but King Theodoric of the Visigoths was killed in the fight, and Aetius, unable to effectively control the allied forces, was forced to disband the army. After this battle, Attila left Gaul, leaving behind a statement, "I will return." He then shifted his focus to Italy. In 452 AD, Attila's ambitions expanded once again as he made matrimonial demands for Honoria from the Western Roman Empire. Simultaneously, his army crossed the Alps, invading the Italian mainland, the heartland of the Western Roman Empire. His forces captured several cities, most notably the complete destruction of Aquileia, a military stronghold that was permanently erased from the map. Emperor Valentinian III, terrified by this sudden attack, fled the capital Ravenna to seek refuge in the old capital, Rome, while Aetius stayed in the north, attempting to organize resistance but could offer little help. Ultimately, the Hunnic army halted its advance at the Po River. Attila received a Roman peace delegation led by Pope Leo Brinson, the chief senator Avienus, and the commander of the imperial guard, Trigetius. After negotiations, Attila agreed to accept the peace terms and withdraw his troops, but he warned that if the Western Roman Empire breached the marriage agreement with Honoria, he would invade Rome again. Historians have proposed various explanations for Attila's sudden withdrawal. The most credible explanation is that Attila's army was possibly hampered by a shortage of food or plague, or because of the Eastern Roman Empire's army crossing the Danube River and raiding his rear. Another reason recorded by Priscus is Attila's fear of meeting the same fate as the Visigoth king Alaric Brimpuan, who died shortly after sacking Rome. This was based on a prophecy by a seer from Aquitaine, later idealized by the painter Raphael and the sculptor Agathias, creating an image of Saints Peter and Paul protecting the Pope, warning the barbarians not to invade the eternal city of Rome. Attila eventually left Italy and returned to his palace north of the Danube River. He planned to attack Constantinople again, forcing the Eastern Roman Emperor Marcian to resume the tribute that had been suspended for 3 years. However, in early 453 AD, Attila suddenly died on his wedding night, the most common explanation being that he suffocated in his sleep due to a burst blood vessel in his nasal cavity. This might have been caused by excessive drinking. His death caused intense mourning among the Hun soldiers, who expressed their grief by cutting their hair and inflicting wounds on their faces. Jordanes recorded, "The greatest of warriors should be mourned with the blood of warriors." Attila's funeral was a grand ceremony where Hunnic horsemen circled around a large silk pavilion containing his body, singing dirges. His body was placed in a coffin made of gold, silver, and iron, and was buried along with the spoils of war and the slaves who dug the grave and were killed for the burial. After Attila's death, his empire rapidly disintegrated, and his 3 sons fought each other for succession. The Hunnic Empire was eventually defeated in the Battle of Nidau under the leadership of the Gepids king of the Vandals, disappearing from the European historical stage. Attila's legendary story was widely celebrated in the cultures of various countries during the Middle Ages. Many rulers claim descent from this powerful conqueror. The Tsars of Bulgaria were considered the most credible claimants to Attila's lineage. Modern genealogists are attempting to reassemble the family tree of Attila the Hun, with some even trying to link his lineage to Charlemagne. However, these attempts have not yet been successful. Attila. His story is not just about conquest and fear, but also about cultural integration and the trajectory of history. Priscus's records offer us a window through which we can glimpse the true face of that distant world. In the spring of AD 448, when Priscus set out with the Eastern Roman diplomatic mission on a journey across the steppes to the heart of the Hunnic Empire, they discovered a world of wonder. There, on the vast steppes, the tents of the Huns stretched endlessly like moving cities. In Priscus's description, Attila's camp was not only large in scale but also surrounded by wooden walls, demonstrating the Huns' existing military and organizational capabilities. When Priscus first saw Attila, he was struck by the leader's appearance, a short stature, broad chest, and those sharp, deep-set eyes. Priscus recorded some of Attila's personal features, such as a flat nose and sparse beard, which shaped an image full of barbarism and terror in the Western world. However, Attila's true character may be much more complex than this stereotypical image. The Hun society recorded by Priscus was not an isolated civilization. In fact, they had extensive contact and exchange with the Roman Empire. The Huns of that time were not only proficient in their own language and Gothic, but also fluent in Latin and Greek, indicating their cultural openness and diversity. Even more astonishingly, some of the Byzantine captives Priscus encountered had fully integrated into the Hunnic lifestyle and even refused to return to their homelands. The stories of these individuals reveal a Hunnic world different from common perception, a society known not only for war and conquest, but also for cultural integration and coexistence. However, Attila's influence extended far beyond this. His military actions forced many Germanic tribes to migrate westward in search of refuge. This great migration of peoples had a significant impact on the political landscape of Europe at the time. The movement of these tribes not only led to the collapse of the western frontiers of the Roman Empire, but also facilitated the establishment of new kingdoms and regimes. This period is known as the Great Migration Era, a pivotal point in European history. Attila's reign was also a time of cultural convergence. The Hunnic Empire under Attila engaged in extensive exchanges and trade with the Roman Empire. These interactions were not limited to military and politics, but also included culture and technology. The military strategies and techniques of the Huns, as well as their lifestyle and social organization, had a certain impact on the Germanic people and later European societies. The story of Attila and his historical impact has become a part of European history. His conquests altered the political and military landscape of the time, and also had profound effects on culture, language, and social structures. The legend of Attila is not just the story of the Hunnic Empire. It is a part of European history, a vivid testimony to the influence on subsequent European eras. This is the story of Attila and his impact on European history. His conquest not only changed the political and military landscape of the time, but also profoundly influenced culture, language, and social structures. Having learned this rich historical information, I have a question to ask everyone. If Attila and the rise of the Hunnic Empire had not happened, how would European history be different? What are their long-term impacts on modern European society? Please share your thoughts in the comments section and join our discussion. Thank you very much for watching this video. If you enjoyed this historical exploration, please don't forget to subscribe to our channel, click like, and share with friends and family. Every interaction from you is very important to us and helps us continue to provide more exciting content. Thank you again for watching, and see you in our next video.